And welcome to the SpartanMag VCast. Jim Comparoni, Paul Konyndyk, Breslin Center. Michigan State lost tonight 70-63 to Northwestern. Northwestern was the better team. Michigan State was sloppy and unstapled in a lot of ways. Izzo kept his composure in some ways, but basically, Paul, the way I see it, Michigan State had a lot of instances where they just sprung leaks on defense in an un-Michigan State way, uncharacteristic of Michigan State teams in the past for 25 years. Guys just getting open on miscommunications. I mean, you'd expect that from a Michigan State football defense in the secondary a little bit back in September and throughout the course of the season and last year. But Izzo defense basketball, usually people are marked. Once in a while you'll get slippage. There was a lot of slippage tonight for various reasons on that end. Northwestern was good enough to run some difficult stuff and create some openings and make some tough shots. Then Michigan State had too many instances where the shot clock's down to 10 or 5 or whatever, and you got off-balance three-point attempts by Akins or Brooks. Nothing against those guys, but the base offense was not creating much. Credit to Northwestern for playing good defense, but Michigan State just not good enough today, and Izzo's eager to get to work on these guys as he gets Malik Hall back in a few weeks, and just even working with these guys and get Akins back in good shape. But Michigan State's not good enough to win this game tonight.
Well, the first thing I wrote in the preview the other day about what has to happen for Michigan State, they need to get offense for Joey Hauser, and I didn't just mean in transition. I knew that they were going to come in here Northwestern and try to take Joey Hauser away as a stretch role. They did that. He had 10 points tonight. All but 2 of those were in transition, and he didn't get any looks in the half court. Now that's your first thing that you want to do to defeat Michigan State. Teams have been trying to do it for years, and Northwestern did that to a T tonight. The other things, when you talk about defense being leaky, Mady Sissoko being the best ball screen defender out there, that's a big deal. Not having him out there for as many minutes in the first half, that's a big deal. When you combine that with not having Tyson Walker out there, and Tyson Walker is easily the best half-court defender that Michigan State has, and you saw early on, I think it was Boo Buie that had a breakaway, looked like he was going to be a layup. Tyson Walker went and blocked his shot at the rim, and then he goes and picks up 2 fouls in the first half. Then he goes and picks up 2 fouls in the first 5 minutes of the second half. Michigan State cannot function defensively without Tyson Walker on the floor.
How hard is it when he picks up number 3? How hard is it to just get him off the court? Michigan State's done this over the years, and it's never really bitten them. Third foul, okay, play's going on. Okay, we got to get him out. He's got 3.
It depends on who the guy is. I mean, Tyson Walker is a guy that has not been foul prone. He's been able to play good defense without getting foul calls. And the one that he got the 4th foul on, that was questionable. And, it's different. If you're a guy that reaches or whatever, and you're a guy that's prone to foul trouble, then it's easier to take him off the court. But Tom Izzo knows very well that if he takes Tyson Walker off the court, Michigan State can't play defense.
But they were in the process of taking him off the court. They had to have been. When he got his 3rd foul on that push-off was the one Izzo didn't like. Right. He said in the post-game press conference he didn't like the 4th one. The 4th one was the block shot down there. Maybe he didn't like either one of them.
Well, either way, we can debate on if he should have been taken off, when he should have been taken off. My point is the reason they brought him back with 10 minutes with 4 fouls is because without Tyson Walker on the floor, Michigan State can't function defensively.
Yeah, that game was getting away. It was staying at 8 points, 9 points. They needed to bring him in because it was even though there were still 9 minutes left, it was a crucial juncture. So what I'm saying is when he picked up this 3rd foul with 18 minutes to go, usually it's okay, get that guy out. Michigan State, Izzo's doing a lot of things over there, and over the years, if you watch it closely, a lot of times Michigan State will let the next possession go before they finally bring the guy out. They let the next possession go. Guy gets inside, and he tries to come over and help and block shot. You saw it, 4th foul. Huge moment in the game. He's got 4 fouls. Michigan State's down, 4 or 5 at that time with 16:30 to go. You rarely see an important Michigan State player pick up a 4th foul 4 minutes into a second half.
Yeah, and I'll say this, though. He is not foul prone. I mean, that's the one guy that can play like airtight, lock-up defense in your grill and not get fouls. And you saw that after he came back playing the final 9 minutes without getting a foul call. Maybe that's because the officials swallowed the whistle a little bit. I don't know, but he played good. Even when he was in the last 5 minutes, there was 2 occasions where Boo Buie went right at him, and he stopped Boo Buie on two possessions. And Michigan State couldn't get any points off of those, on the other end of the floor. Credit to Northwestern. It was tough. If you don't have Tyson Walker on the floor as your scorer, I mean, because he's the one guy. He's the one guy this season, no matter if Joey Hauser's been in the game or not, he's been able to get that mid-range jumper, get something going, and he did some good things tonight. He was efficient, 4 of 6, but it was a tough night for Michigan State overall. Again, the whole idea with Michigan State, if they can limit, Northwestern's always done a good job with Chris Collins when they play Michigan State. If they can limit transition buckets and make it a half-court game, then they usually have a shot against Michigan State. And this isn't a one-off. Michigan State has lost to Northwestern several occasions since Chris Collins has been there. This is the Northwestern team that has Michigan State's number. And, obviously Michigan State's shorthanded personnel-wise, but I don't think this really should shock anybody, given what Northwestern has done over the years, given what these two guys, Chase Adige and Boo Buie, have done to Michigan State over the years. This should not be a shock.
You said that before the game. You're like, this is going to be a tough game.
I always say
State.
that. I always say that with these games, and everyone's like, "Oh, you're just a pessimist." Well, I am a pessimist.
I didn't believe you, Paul.
Yeah. Well,
I was like looking for my M&Ms and stuff the first couple minutes. I wasn't ready to play either, Paul.
Yeah, you thought I was Mr. Tinfoil Hat, like you usually think when I say this is going to be a tough game.
You were right. And
well, the other thing, one of the things I was thinking about, and one of the things that Tom Izzo didn't mention because he doesn't want to use the fatigue angle, and I said this in the last VCast when we were talking about, when we did the SpartanMag Live after Notre Dame game, I said Northwestern played the game that they lost to Pittsburgh 2 days earlier than Michigan State played the game they played against Notre Dame, and so you got all that time for those guys in the practice gym. That might not seem like a lot to some people, but 2 days,
2 extra days
of practice. When you see this Michigan State team that has had 2 practices, so.
Northwestern had twice as much prep time for this game.
Right, and I was trying to make that point.
Four days instead of 2 days. And
I don't know if I made that because, I was sitting in the car. It was 2 o'clock in the morning or whatever it was, and I was trying not to shiver. But I thought that might be a factor. And then, obviously, the guards that they've got. If those guys play within themselves and don't take bad shots that lead to runouts, Northwestern does a good job. I felt like Chase Adige played his most in-control game I've ever seen him play. There's times where I thought he should have taken the ball to the rack or should have done something, and he didn't. These guys did not do stupid things tonight, and
they didn't.
And Michigan State did a few of them.
Northwestern made some difficult veteran shots within the context of what needed to be done at that time. Michigan State taking some shots, some bad shots here and there. But, Michigan State, some were just kind of rising fire, didn't need to shoot that one. But that's almost a product also of just not getting enough out of your base, half-court offense and things. And that gets back to what Izzo talked about, and we mentioned this after the Notre Dame game. It's not only the fatigue which hurt Michigan State against Notre Dame, did not hurt them tonight, except for Jaden Akins, who's out of condition, understandably so. But Izzo said after the Notre Dame game, it's not just the fatigue, it's the lack of practices they've had throughout November because the schedule was so busy. Every practice was getting ready for the next team. Every practice was getting ready for Oregon or getting ready for Alabama or getting ready for – because they came in such quick succession. And Joey Hauser said this in the locker room afterward. They've not had a lot of practices where they just work on us and themselves. And Michigan State had a couple of possessions, with about 5 minutes to go where nothing was working on offense, and they had a couple of those desperation three-pointers like I mentioned earlier. And Hauser said that's exactly what he's talking about. Haven't worked on enough to get some of those, late game quick hitters. Usually, when you see Izzo at the end of a game and he's got his laminated call sheet like he did against Kentucky, it means they've had enough time to prepare for this. When games get tight, Izzo pulled out that laminated sheet and they've got a list of things they've worked on that they go to that a lot of times are new things, and a lot of times those things work real well. There's no laminated call sheet tonight. Case in point, and that the half-court offense fails. That's a product of that. Michigan State's 5-4 now. They're not playing good basketball, but I'll say the same thing I said after the Notre Dame game. This doesn't mean that this is what Michigan State is going to be all year. There's going to be peaks and valleys like there are in every season. They're in a valley right now.
Yeah, the other thing to think about is you talk about that. Why do you need those late game hitters? Why do you need the extra practice time? Because all these conference teams know you better than the teams that have played you in the non-conference. Northwestern knows Michigan State. They know what it takes to stop Michigan State. They've got veteran guys on that team that have done this before, and it's easier to get away with this type of thing when you're just doing prep for teams that don't play you on a regular basis. Chris Collins, I believe, is, going back to even his first year as Northwestern head coach, there's been years when they've had to get it done on with defense, and they've done that. And this is a year that a lot of people didn't think they'd be very good because Pete Nance goes to North Carolina, Ryan Young goes to Duke, I believe it was. In both, God bless both those guys for making it, going to the ACC and chasing their dream. But this team is better, than it was last year. And to me, it looks like they've got guys that finally know what their roles are and they're willing to execute them.
And I would agree with all that. Those are good points. And I don't know if it's addition by subtraction, but the guys they have back are veteran, and Izzo is very complimentary of Bowie and who's the Audra? How do you say his last
Chase
name?
Audige.
It's just, Izzo said in the post-game press conference, you can see on the YouTube channel or at SpartanMag, that he complimented those players for not just launching shots like he said they did last year, and now they're playing defense. And after practice here a few days ago, Izzo was talking about how good Northwestern's defense was. And I asked him, well, what's the difference? And he says, I don't know. They've just been emphasizing it differently, what he didn't really know. And Chris Collins said after the game, they've been hanging in their hat on their defense. And for this game, they were able to get their offense back in tune. But Northwestern's defense, the Pittsburgh game notwithstanding, starting to get a reputation as being pretty good defense right now.
I think one of the things you look at is, good defense is related in some ways to good offense. I think some of the shots, the bad shots that those dudes were taking last year, those lead to runouts and easy scorers, and they're not taking those shots anymore, and they're getting back on defense. I don't think Northwestern played bad defense per se before, but I think they had way too many bad shots, and a lot of those shots led to easy buckets. And Michigan State's not alone in this early Big Ten season of struggling. You've got, like an Indiana team that was kind of hyped. They took one on the chin the other night to Rutgers, a team that was not hyped. You look at Illinois. They lost the other night to Maryland, and nobody really saw that coming. Illinois is a team that's done some good things like Michigan State. This is conference basketball right now. I'll say it again. Teams know you better in some ways than you know yourself. You talk about maybe fatigue not being an issue tonight. I'll say one guy that I thought looked really tired, has looked really tired, and has not got acclimated to this kind of schedule is Jackson Kohler. He's a guy that looks like, he's playing like he hasn't slept for 3 days or 4 days out there. This has not been easy on him. He's not a guy with a huge athletic upside, but he's really struggling out there. And there's not one time tonight that I saw a ball go up and come off the rim where I felt like, he's in position to get a rebound or he's going to get a rebound. Yeah,
so he plays 12 minutes. They had trouble with him on the ball screens. They were in practice the other day. They were working on Northwestern's ball screens, as everybody does. Carson Cooper comes in there and plays 3 minutes. Had a dunk and got fouled once. I think he went 4 points. Could have had a 3-point play once.
Missed a wide open, but missed a dunk that went off his hands. But I thought he showed good hands twice on on some plays. And
2 out of 3 is bad. Not to quote Meatloaf or anything, but when it comes to hands for a big man.
Oh, I understand that, but I mean, he gave them more than what I'm saying is I'm talking about. He gave them more than Kohler gave them, and he's got some length and he's got a little bit of toughness to him. And I understand why Michigan State wants Kohler to do the job because he's got good footwork and whatnot, and they want to give it to him on offense. But right now, he is not giving them close to what he's given up. And that's a problem. Maybe some of these days off are going to help him, but it's not going to be easy for him to get it back on track over at Penn State. They run some good stuff. They make it hard, and he needs this holiday break, but he might need a little bit of more of a breather, prior to that because he's just dragging.
Yeah, and Izzo talked about the lack of depth hurt them without Malik Hall and with Jaden Akins, a different form of Jaden Akins playing tonight, and Pierre Brooks having to play 30 minutes. That's not ideal. And of course, the retort would be, well, that's Izzo's fault for not bringing in 1 or 2 more players. But Izzo, when they were healthy, Izzo was very emotional in the Kentucky game. He felt that he was getting more out of those players because he bought in with them. He didn't recruit over their head. There's a loyalty two-way street thing there. Having 10 scholarship players, which can help you as long as everybody stays healthy. So, the depth thing hurt them tonight. Sissoko gets in foul trouble in the first half, sits about 7 minutes in the first half, and then Walker sits about 8 minutes in the second half. Yeah. Those 15 minutes without it's not like they were both sitting at the same time, but the combination of both of those things and what it does for slippage for the overall construct of the defense, that's what allowed Northwestern to do some things and lead at halftime and gave them an initial push in the second half when Walker got a second foul.
Yeah, I thought Sissoko actively as a defender early on. I mean, he had a couple block shots. He had a couple really good rebounds. In that second half when Michigan State was kind of dog-tired and whatnot, I just felt like when the ball went up, there's no way there's going to give you a second chance opportunity. I think Michigan State had they had 5 or 6 more offensive rebounds than Northwestern did in that first half. In the second half, they were not good on the glass. And, Joey Hauser, to his credit, he's the one guy that, I know he's dog tired too, but he keeps on scrapping, keeps on clawing, and keeps on playing well, and he hustled. And he had a pretty good game, even though he was taken away in the half court. But Michigan State's got to find a way to get better rebounding. There's that. Go back to what people are saying. Oh, they should have brought in a transfer. You should have brought in this and that. But those guys would be sitting if Michigan State was healthy, and that's the bottom line. So it's kind of like the unseen is undefeated type of thing. Who are you going to bring in that's going to go replace? It's going to replace Tyson Walker, who's going to be as good as Tyson Walker. So yeah. And who that's already entered the transfer portal is going to be willing to sit their butt on a bench and wait for someone to get injured so they can get their chance and you can be proven right. I mean, that's like
people want a nameless, faceless transfer that's going to come in and have an impact that like they have at Houston or North Carolina last year. I don't know in the future how often that's going to happen, but if you bring a transfer in right now, okay, a guy's going to come in and sit behind Akins and Brooks, or is he going to play ahead of Akins and Brooks? And how would Akins and Brooks feel? You're going to bring in a guy that's better than Sissoko has been? I'm not saying Sissoko's been great, but he's been good. You think there's someone out there in the portal, a big man who's better than Sissoko? Not many. 1 or 2, maybe.
Yeah,
you're going to bring in a guy that's going to play behind Sissoko? No, a guy's not going to want to come here and play behind. But they wouldn't have known they'd be behind Sissoko at the time. But I'll go back to
the Ryan Young and Pete Nance deal. Okay, I know Pete Nance is playing a lot of minutes, but Ryan Young is a guy that went to Duke. Ryan Young's a guy that was pretty good against Michigan State. Those are probably the 2 of the best big man transfers out there. And Pete Nance isn't blowing the doors off of anybody. I wasn't impressed with him when he was at Northwestern, but he's not like uber elite. I mean, he's playing good minutes for a North Carolina team, and Ryan Young's not even playing. So
how's North Carolina doing?
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, it all sounds good.
Sounds great.
And it's great, but Izzo didn't want to mess with the chemistry of this basketball team, and you have to roll the dice.
He looked at his players and said, "I'm betting on you guys," and they appreciated that. And if they stay healthy, you can get compound interest as a coach from that if they stay healthy, which they haven't. But go ahead.
And that's a good bet when you look at what they look like when they're on the floor together. And so, I mean, whatever isn't the case of what doesn't look good is going to be the thing that should have happened. But I'm not saying I don't think that would have necessarily been true. That wouldn't have translated into victories before these guys got hurt. When you've got all these guys you're trying to mix in.
Probably would have lost to Kentucky.
Probably would have lost to Gonzaga by 20. You would have lost to Kentucky. No way you beat Villanova.
And then you have a couple of people pouting in their locker room too, which coaches, I mean,
right.
Managing personalities is a big part of this.
Absolutely. And
now Akins being stuck on the floor when he was dog tired. I have never seen a Michigan State player look that tired getting stuck on the court like that.
I've never seen a guy that loves defense. It's a great athlete that wants to be out there a ton of minutes. Keep on looking over to the bench like, when is a whistle going to get blown?
Well, I tell you what, Paul, Akins leaving him out there too long, and Walton leaving him out there for the 4th foul. I hate to say it, but that's
Walker.
Dwayne Stevens' job. That's what used to be Dwayne's job. Getting guys in and out. Or sorry, what did I say, Walton?
Yeah.
Walker getting his 4th foul. Stevens used to be the guy, making substitutions, because Izzo's coaching the game. He can't be worried about that stuff. So that's a part with the new coaching staff that I think showed a little bit of a flat tire today. Just a couple of things, but it only takes a couple of things to get a flat tire.
Yeah, and there's a couple of times where you and I both felt like, man, even though you don't want to take a timeout to get a guy off the floor, you just feel like with a guy like that coming back for an injury, he's going to give you everything he's got, and he did a nice job, I think, bouncing back in the second half. But I just feel like with some guys, you just risk like draining the batteries and not getting it back, and they needed him. And maybe they have to keep him out there a little bit more because of Tyson Walker not being out there. But by the end of that shift, he had played 12 minutes. I think he had played like 12 minutes at that point, but he must have played 8 minutes straight, and it was, and I think he gave up a 3 late in that shift, and through no fault of his own, he gave everything he got. He was a little bit late on the closeout, and that's what happens when guys are fatigued.
Cost him a couple field goals there. Also, big play. Michigan State was down 62-58, about a minute and a half to go. And Northwestern, I think it called a timeout. They had that sideline inbound play, talking about set plays to go to at the end of a game. Northwestern had a really good one there. Inbounded to Bowie. Bowie fakes a handoff and goes with it. He fakes a handoff, and Pierre Brooks, bites on it with Hogard. So Hogard and Brooks both go to this guy. Buie comes wide open, 10-foot stop and pop. Another instance of a Michigan State defense allowing a wide open jumper that's curiously un-Spartan-like. And Hogard, was not happy with Brooks after that play. But even if it's a play that you've not scouted, you're going to get out unscouted looks in games. But there's principles. Action's going this way. You've got a teammate there. I'm not going to lap you when someone in the other color jersey is going that way, whether he has the ball or not, because there was a little bit of trickery with the ball. But there's unspoken telepathy that needs to happen to play good team defense. Pierre Brooks does not have that right now. Izzo knows it. They're having to play with him anyway. 29 minutes, and there was some slippage there as well. There was the play a couple minutes earlier, about 5 minutes ago, when they took like a 6 or 8 point lead, when Roper backed down Brooks and kind of got him on an up and under, and Brooks is just not stopping that guy in that situation.
And Roper's a guy that's played with Pierre Brooks before. He's a guy that's been in the practice gym with him, and I think they played for the same AAU team, if I'm not mistaken. I think they both came up through the family. And Roper got on Brooks a couple times tonight. His eyes lit up, and he went to work. I mean, and that's unfortunately for Pierre Brooks. Everybody's going to be like that. Oh, I got Pierre Brooks is on me. Guess what? It's go time, and he's got to get to the point where he can be a functional defender. He's not. And if he's not going to be that guy, he's got to be giving them something to offset that. And, he missed a couple open threes early in this game. I mean, he went 3 for 10, did some good things in the second half from 3, but he's got to give them defense and rebounding. If the defense isn't there, it's got to be rebounding. Mm-hmm. Michigan State's rebounding wasn't good enough, but you have to find a way to offset your deficiencies. And you can say what you want about being out-toughed, and Brooks is one of those guys tonight where he's up front and said, we were out-toughed. And, well, you weren't necessarily out-toughed. You were just, outplayed because you can't defend. And that's where you got to look in the mirror and say, there's not a toughness quotient that's going to make you a better defender. You just got to get out there and be mentally tough and understand that I need to work at what I'm not good at. And that's really – I mean, you and I both have teenage children, right? So one of the things I see all the time when I'm watching high school sports and whatnot is guys have and girls have a really hard time at admitting that they're not good at something. They have a really hard time at addressing what they're not good at. And I think Pierre Brooks has gone through his life to this point believing that anything that you can do to me, I can do more to you. I can score more than you. He's got to get to the point where he wants to be and becomes a better defender.
He seems like, talking to him after practice a couple days ago, he's aware of the defensive thing, and he seems to be interested and want to do something about it. And I said in the Portland game, I thought that he did a really good job anticipating some actions. That was on just, no-day prep back then. And I thought that was a great step in the right direction. Notre Dame game, slippage there, difficult circumstances. Tonight happens again. Here's the deal. Izzo never has a guy that's that much of a defensive, I don't want to say liability, but question mark.
He's a question mark. We know he's a liability. It's not a question mark. It's not like someone goes in there saying, I think I might be able to score on Pierre Brooks, or maybe I can. No, they know they can score on him. He is a liability. That doesn't mean he's a bad person, but he's a liability.
Izzo's never had a team in which he's had a defensive liability play 30 minutes. Izzo's never had to. Right. And to get that fixed, there's no way you get that fixed if you keep giving him 30 minutes. Chris Hill had that problem early in his career. He was getting his 30 minutes no matter how bad he played on defense. Yeah. And it doesn't get fixed until you start losing playing time. And he will start losing playing time as Akins gets back in shape and after Malik Hall comes back. Yeah. Tonight Pierre Brooks had to play some minutes at the power forward. And they like to have that against some smaller lineups, theoretically. But usually if you're going to play a smaller guy at the 4, that guy's usually going to be a quick 4 on defense, which Brooks is not. So there's a lot of ironing out that needs to be done there. And unless Brooks changes his defense and becomes more accountable there, and he's trying, I'm not saying he's like defiantly, it's not like he's Michael Ray Richardson out there, but until that gets better, his playing time is going to decrease. Izzo could have played Whitens more, but like Izzo said, we got some guys that can score that can't play defense, right. Some guys that play defense that can't score. Let's be honest about it too. With Tyson Walker being in foul trouble, that limits what you can do out there defensively. I think moving forward, now that Akins is back, one of the things that you can do is you can play A.J. Hogard, Tyson Walker, and Jaden Akins
as your three guards, and then Pierre Brooks can come off the bench, and then that's ideal because he's coming off the bench as a spot up shooter, and he's not coming off the bench or not coming in the game as someone that's going to play 30 minutes. But you cannot do that when a guy like Walker's in foul trouble. It makes, you can tinker all you want with whether it's Whitens or Pierre Brooks, and I think Whitens does some good things as well. But Whitens had a couple complete brain farts tonight as well. He had the bizarre travel turnover, and then there's almost ones where there was no inbounds play because he was running down the court. So. Where he had to sprint back to get it. But I think you'll see moving forward, now that Izzo's made his point with Hogard coming off the bench, I think you'll see moving forward, or I think you could see moving forward, Walker, Hogard, and Akins as your three guards. Yeah. And then that takes the pressure off Pierre. He can come in and do his thing as a three-point shooter, as a spot-up guy. It gives you some points as the first guy in the game. But it also, will also continue to preach that you need to get better on defense. If they can get him playing 20 minutes instead of 30, that would be a lot better.
Talk about Brooks or Hogard?
Brooks. And
it was strange because you had Brooks, who's had some hot shooting moments at times this season. You had Brooks and Akins today rising and firing early in shot clocks. Not a bunch of times, but a few times when it just didn't look right and it didn't really pay off. They might have made one of those shots, but that's not Michigan State either. Those might go in on a certain night and you might look good one night, but then it's not a way to become consistent. And this program has won championships on consistency. That was a little off script, too.
One of the things I think that makes it really tough is on the rise and fire stuff. And one of the things I've noticed on some of those shots, it's when the initial post entry pass isn't there, or a guy's not quite in position, or those guys are worried about turning the ball over. Hogard is very quick to change the script when he doesn't feel a post-entry pass is there. And sometimes he's very late on the post-entry pass, and it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. But I think some of these teams, they've been able to push bigs off the spot when Mady's not in there, and the post-entry passes are wonky. And tonight I think Northwestern's bigs, they do a really nice job with the lower body, a la Wisconsin sometimes. But when those post-entry passes aren't there, the ball's not going inside, that's when you see the rise and fire quick crap that Michigan State can't afford to do. Even if Michigan State tried to get the ball inside, it didn't work out, you're still working towards what you're supposed to be.
And you know how Izzo loves those inside-out three-pointers also. You're not seeing many of those at all. There was an inside-out turnover tonight. But, the rise and fire, I guess my point is they've not earned the right to launch those.
Right.
Like past players, like a Gary Harris and some others in the past. They may get there at some point, but they're not there right now, and especially with Akins being with the lack of conditioning. He made his first three, then he missed his next four three-pointers.
I think when you're going early in the shot clock, like Michigan State has been apt to do sometimes, you're hurting Michigan State. You're hurting your team because it just gives them a quick possession. And you don't want to be rising and firing and then quick running back on your heels when you've got two guys like Dij and Boo Buie that can drive to the basket. And that's something that has to get ironed out, but it's more problematic when you can't rebound either. That's what I'm like. Michigan State,
they're lucky they didn't get out-rebounded worse tonight, because there were a couple times when it was kind of bouncing around and State ended up getting some, I don't want to say lucky rebounds.
Yeah, they were lucky rebounds. Where they,
shouldn't have gotten.
That's why I'll say
rebound.
that one of the things that impressed me with Joey Hauser tonight is he scrapped and got close enough where he could get lucky rebounds. But sometimes out there, Jackson Kohler, one of the reasons I said he was just so dog-tired is because he cannot leave his feet on rebounds. I could box him out, and I.
He has to get silo rebounds. It's got to come into his airspace,
Right.
Which he gets some of those. Sutan used to get some like that sometimes, but
not right now. He's not. He was much better rebounder when he had fresh legs earlier in the year against teams. I think back to Gonzaga, back to Kentucky. Those are teams that are better rebounding teams than this Northwestern team. It was odd tonight.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like Notre Dame earlier this week is a good rebounding team either.
Mm-hmm. I kind of expected Keon Coleman to be out here tonight in some fashion. I know Izzo mentioned the other night that he had a hip injury late in the season. You may remember some football games late in the season. I'm like, why is Keon Coleman not out there? Remember that?
Yeah.
Izzo kind of revealed that he battled some hip problems late in the season.
Well,
so they're giving him some rest there, but they're not too far away from needing a defensive glove a couple minutes per half.
Well, it's tough too. The other thing that's tough too for Michigan State right now. We talk about these guys not getting practice. So you bring in a guy like Keon Coleman, and then you're trying to walk through, and you're trying to get him acclimated while you're trying to get other guys practice. You can't quite work on yourselves because you're trying to get him up to speed where you can work on yourselves. Where he comes in, where is valuable is after this next Big Ten game, and then you've got a really manageable schedule with a bunch of open dates, and you can start practicing. I would be shocked if he wasn't back on the practice court then, but you can't afford to waste valuable practice time, limited practice time, preparing for Big Ten opponents to get a guy up to speed.
I'm not saying he could help tonight. I'm just surprised that the process hasn't started. But they got final exams coming up. Maybe that's part of it. I don't know. Late in the game, Michigan State was 64-61. What the heck was it? It was was it 64-63, 45 seconds left. It was their back-breaking possession when Buie got that ball screen to his left and scored, around Sissoko. Sissoko had been so good, and he's been so good, ball screen defense, getting out and affecting that driver, whether it be a 45-degree angle or feathering it at flat defending it. On this one, Buie attacked Sissoko, and Buie was very willful, I know he's going to step out, but I'm going to beat him anyway. And Sissoko is very good at that, but this is a situation in which the other guy was just better. Turned the corner, got all the way to the rim, scored a difficult shot, 23 seconds left to go up by 3. Ball screen defense is a strength for Michigan State. It's going to be a strength. They'll show that to Sissoko, and he'll learn from it in a key time, crunch time. Ball screen defense, if you're tired or whatever, needs to be your best ball screen defense of the day, of the game. And I'm not saying Sissoko did it wrong, but that was a teachable moment against a veteran who attacked a very good ball screen defender, but managed to turn the corner on that one. And he couldn't really get help from somewhere else because they were pretty good at getting to open guys if you overhelp. And it happened so quickly. That was just a veteran play by Buie on that one.
And he's done that stuff so many times. There's a reason why Tom Izzo said that he was one of the best one-on-one players in the Big Ten. He said arguably the best one-on-one player in the Big Ten. And that's a compliment, and it's also not a compliment. When you say that, because Buie, we've seen over the years for Northwestern players, there's dudes that hit weird shots and shots that you don't expect to because they're taking weird shots and shots you don't expect them to take. And Boo Buie's taking a lot of shots, a lot of good shots and a lot of bad shots and a lot of terrible shots and worse shots. But tonight, he made it count when it mattered, and that's what veterans do.
When he gets it going, he's hard to stop.
Yeah.
So that weakness for Michigan State on that play is not a weakness that's going to be there all year. That's something that they can tighten some screws on. So people are going to be freaking out Michigan like they always do. Michigan State's 5-4. Oh, I thought this was going to be a good season. They suck. Because a lot of people think that they're going to be like this all year. Yeah. I mean, I'm hoping that people that are watching this have been a Michigan State fan for more than 3 years, maybe 5 years, maybe 15 years, maybe 25 years to know that Tom Izzo teams usually, if they stay healthy, get better as they go along, especially when they have practices and get a chance to get into a scouting report and put a laminated sheet of plays together for late game. Michigan State usually gets better as a team. So I'll say again, I hope that people don't think this is what it's going to be like all year. They might have struggles all year, but my guess is as Akins gets back to health and better conditioning, he'll be playing the 28 minutes, and Brooks will go back down to about 22 minutes or so. And then you get Malik Hall back, around Christmas. And it's going to take a while for him to get better.
Right.
So Michigan State was hoping to get off to a 1-0 start today. So Joey Hauser said, we have a goal to win the Big Ten this year. We've not won it in 2 or 3 years, and this was a chance to get off to a good start. And we failed, is what Joey Hauser said. I would go as far as to say that I'll bet that, at face value, starting the Big Ten season at home against Northwestern, theoretically, when you're putting the schedule together, would have looked like the easiest Big Ten game you could possibly have. And Penn State is better or whatever, but to begin the Big Ten season with 2 games against Northwestern and Penn State, then Christmas, then you get into the rest of the Big Ten season, I think that the Big Ten kind of gave Michigan State a little bit of a favor there on paper, theoretically, because they knew Michigan State had that killer November to the point where I wouldn't be surprised that Michigan State lobbied for that. But they wanted to, get off to a good start, 1-0, and make a run at a Big Ten title. Now this puts them behind an 8 ball. You lose what should be a winnable home game. It's a long season. They won a Big Ten regular season championship, and they're not out of it. They're 0-1. This is a step back, but I don't even know what I was going to, my winder-upper was going to be on that whole
just look
thing.
Look at college basketball right now. Like the Creighton Nebraska deal tonight. I mean, I watched Creighton a couple times this year, and I thought, man, that looks like a team that could make a deep run.
Who did they play the other day? Houston? Did they play? Who did they play? Creighton played someone interesting.
I think
they
played Houston.
Gonzaga?
They played pretty good, but Creighton's looked good, and they got beat by Nebraska. Look around conference basketball, you're seeing a lot of upsets. Like I already mentioned, Illinois, in Indiana. It's a long season. Michigan State's got to get a whole lot better to compete with a team like Purdue.
Yeah,
but it's a long season, and we've seen this happen before. Typically, we don't see it happen this earlier in the year because Michigan State has been pretty good at these early games against some of these teams. But didn't they lose? They lost to Northwestern to start the season last year, didn't they?
Did they? I don't know.
At Northwestern?
Probably.
So
I don't remember anything.
So you can say he's doing you a favor, but
it's better than it's better than playing Purdue right now after what Michigan State's been through. Or Indiana or Michigan.
I'll go that far, but this Northwestern team,
Illinois,
traditionally has had Michigan State's number under Chris Collins, and even games where Michigan State's won, they've been close games.
Right.
All right, we'll wrap it up.
All right, so I expected Michigan State to play better tonight, but watching it develop and unfold, it makes sense. So that's kind of where I am on this thing. They got to get back to work. This is an expensive loss, 5-4. Now they go at Penn State Thursday. Yeah. So that you've been saying for weeks that's not going to be easy.
And I think Micah Shrewsbury, I personally believe Micah Shrewsbury is one of the better rising coaches in the Big Ten. I think he's the one guy that I look at and say that he can do something because his players believe in him. I think he's got a great background, and I think he's a good basketball dude. It's not going to be easy.
All right, Michigan State had a chance to get a 6-3 tonight, get a little breathing room, head into to what should be a constructive, productive December in terms of practices. Now this puts a sour taste on all of it. They got a lot of work to do. They've got some parts, not an abundance of parts, but they've got some parts. They got a great coach. They'll be working on it, and we'll be here to cover to see what happens. But anyway, we'll stay tuned. SpartanMag will have continuing analysis and conversation of this game. Izzo press conference on Monday. We'll have coverage of that as well. For Paul Konyndyk, my name is Jim Comparoni. You've been watching the VCast from East Lansing, Michigan, SpartanMag.